Welcome to the podcast of the impossible. I'm Peter Wood, and today I'm chatting with a magician who proposed to a gal on stage and the now wife who was kind enough to say yes. I'm talking about Jason and Stacy Allen. Hello. Welcome back. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
That might be my favorite introduction ever.
Well, so that clip is on YouTube, right? If someone wants to see that, yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about how this was on a cruise ship, right?
I'll let you start because you were the mastermind behind all of this.
So, yes, it was on a cruise ship. I love to overdo and make things as broad as I possibly can. So we had, but a year before that, we had met at a bar. We went back to her apartment after I did a few card tricks for her at the bar, and I did 8 hours of more magic in her apartment.
That is true.
I did The Art of Astonishment, all 3 books. And then a year later, we were going out to dinner. I was getting ready to head out on a ship, and we were getting sushi, and we walked into a jeweler's. And you were telling this the other day. Stacy must have thought that I was going to propose at some point. What'd you say, Valentine?
Well, okay, so he was going out on the ship, and while he was on the ship, it was going to be our 1-year anniversary. Okay. And I was going to go visit him for our anniversary because we were going to be gone for like 2 months. And then shortly after that would be Christmas, my birthday, and then Valentine's Day. So after sushi, he walks me into a jewelry store to look at rings, which we had talked about it a little bit, but this was pretty surprising.
I had a coupon.
Yeah, it expires on Friday. Yeah.
So he takes me in there. Little did I know that he had already been talking to people there.
So I conned the lady behind the counter into telling Stacy that there's no way we could get a ring today because she found one that she liked.
Yes.
There's no way because of these holidays and stuff. If you wanted to order, it's going to take 6 months.
Yes. Get
nice.
One before the ring comes in. So I believed her, right? So I was like, okay, so it's going to happen, but it probably won't be for a little while. Right, that's what I was thinking.
So
great.
They sent the ring down to Florida. I picked it up. We were communicating like this through video chat. And I have all these pictures where I would write on a napkin, I bought you an engagement ring, and I'd wipe my forehead.
Never saw it.
And it was sitting in the background.
And we have screenshots of this. These were things were really happening. The ring box would be in plain sight while we're communicating through FaceTime. I had no idea.
So I told her that the only way she could come on the cruise ship is if she did a trick because they wouldn't let her on the ship because I'm very cheap and I can't pay for another cabin.
Sure.
I still married him. I know.
The trick, we were on a ship. You didn't have a choice. Were you going to swim home?
Yeah, right.
There was the trick that we worked on. I said, I'm going to have 3 people pick cards. You're going to be blindfolded. You're going to reveal them. The last card's going to be the ace of diamond. You're going to say, I picture a diamond in my hand. Is it the ace of diamonds?
Right. While
she was doing this blindfolded on the stage, I had a giant pad of paper.
Oh yes.
That was telling the audience, this is your 1-year anniversary.
Nice.
Oh yeah, they were really into it too. They were a great crowd. They really helped you out a lot. I mean, they were glad. I was like, man, I'm doing a great job. They were loving me. I was like, this is great. Yeah, I had no idea what was going on.
She said yes. Then a lady came up to us after the show and said, are you going to repeat that trick in the second show? Is that part of it, or is it?
I would love to see. Yeah. Talk about Stacy's acting chops. Can you have the same reaction at the second show?
It's funny because if you actually watch the video, if any of the viewers actually go and watch the video, if you listen really closely, when Jason places the ring box in my hand, you can actually hear me go, what are you doing? Because what he left out was I actually had learned another trick. I had learned a trick and had been practicing it for a month in my apartment. Okay. Because I was originally going to just come on and do this trick before I knew I had to do another trick. So I had been so anxious. I was not performing at this point, really, just taking things on and off stage for him, doing nothing really major. And I'm like, this is his career. This is what he does for a living. I don't want to mess this up. So 2 weeks before I go out, he says, you got to do another trick. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I was just starting to be okay with this first trick. So when he does this and he changes the script on me, right? He puts something in my hand that is not a card. I can clearly feel that it's not a card.
Right.
In my mind, I'm like, what is happening? Like, we're messing up this trick. Like, it's going to go terrible. So you can hear me say,
Sure.
what are you doing?
He-
And I don't
he-
even I actually say yes until I get off stage because I'm so just shocked. It was just, I had no
Right.
idea. It was, yeah.
That's great. Well, yeah. I mean, he was off book at that point, right? Like there was a script and everything was fine, and all of a sudden he's going. I mean, yeah, I can see how your first reaction is not going to be to sort of be present in the moment, but to be like, wait, that's not your line. Like, don't you know?
That's not what we're doing. And then I took the blindfold off, and then it was just I was crying. And
Right. Oh, that's fantastic. No, I love that story. And I remember seeing the video, when, shortly after it was posted, I guess. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. And so we met, all the three of us met up at MagiFest. I had to look it up. It was 2013. So this is our 10-year anniversary. And I mean, I guess February. Yeah. That was my first MagiFest. I've been to, I guess, one since. But I remember it being a really killer lineup. I don't remember everyone in particular, but there was, at least Tamariz, I remember at 3 a.m., watching him do card tricks around the table. But it was a really good lineup of talent. But you guys have been, I mean, being based in Ohio, like how many of those had you been going to and how many have you been to since? Do you even remember?
So I started going in 2006, I think.
Okay.
And I had gone to every single one up until right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it was originally run by someone else, and then they switched over. I think it was the first year Josh or second year Josh had done it. Josh J.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to a lot.
You've been to a lot.
That was probably your second, maybe, or first. I don't know.
I've been to 5 or 6.
Okay.
And these last few, we've been unable to go, unfortunately, just due to gigs and things that we've been doing. But hopefully we'll be able to go again. We really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Well, and so for our friend listening who may not, first of all, even know that a magic convention exists, let alone I'm sure people picture Hogwarts, right? Like they assume we're all walking around in robes and top hats and making rabbits appear and disappear.
Which we are.
Which happens. More card tricks than rabbits. But yeah, there's definitely, what do you guys enjoy? Like, what do you feel like you get out of a convention, or what are some of the highlights for you?
That's a good question.
When I started going, like, it was the realization that there were other people like me that enjoyed doing that stuff, and all other people that were a lot better than me.
Oh, interesting.
I love to be, what's the old saying? If you're the best person in a room, find another room.
Right.
Like and it's such you see, the one someone explained to me recently that the fun thing about magic is you get to meet your heroes more often than anything else. So if you're a fan of baseball, you're probably not going to be in the same room as, Nolan Ryan. There's a reference for you.
True.
But like here, it was interesting because like David Williamson, who's a giant name in magic, would just sit down next to you and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And Juan Tamariz, you got to sit with him.
I did.
And, like I told you, didn't really know at the time who he was.
I didn't know who he was.
I'm like, you need to sit here and watch this.
Yeah.
But that was the fun part. When I originally started going, they had all the competitions and all that stuff. And I like doing that. I used to compete a good bit.
Okay.
But that was.
I would say for me,
the dealer's room.
I like the dealer's room. I do like the dealer's room, but early on when I started going with him, I was really, not doing a whole lot of magic. And I really just love watching magic. I really like, my favorite part of a convention. Some people will say like, oh, when I first started going, there weren't as many women going. And I will say now there's a lot, and it's great. And there's a lot of women doing awesome things in magic, and I love it. But the first few that I went to, there really were not a lot there.
There's never a line to the one.
Yeah, never a line to
Yeah.
And of course, you'd have a lot of people saying to you, do you want to see a trick? And some people would be like, is that annoying that they come up to you? And I said, no, I love it. Like anyone, I'd be like, yeah, show me a trick. Like, show me something cool. Like,
awesome.
I enjoyed, going and just watching people do what they love. And I'm a people person. I mean, that's, being in a psych background and a therapy background, I like watching people, right? So I liked watching all of these people do their thing in their community. And it was just interesting to see all the different types of people that were into magic and what they were doing. And so I would always welcome it. Like, yeah, can I sit down and you show me something? Now, if they asked me to show them something, I would get very nervous and probably walk away, but.
Right. No, I mean, honestly, that's me too. Like I love watching it, but I don't, especially because of the kind of show that I do, I don't have a go-to signature card trick. It's like, well, show me something. Like, all right, hang on, I gotta go get a box and I gotta find an electrical outlet, but I got this 4 light bulb thing. Just to stay there and let me get, it's
that's cool though.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I can't carry. I'm not only can't, I wouldn't, but I, have no interest in walking that around a convention. And so I guess I always felt inadequate at a magic convention where I don't have my like magician fooler that fits in my pocket. Like I do close up the least amount of the sort of venues that I work. So the sort of close up strolling stuff that I have is the least original and refined as compared to the things you might see in parlor or stage. But yeah, I love watching other people do cool stuff that I've never seen before. So yeah, it's fun.
It's interesting because I've never created a magic trick in my life. We've created presentations. But what's interesting about those conventions to me, you'll meet someone that's like really specific on something. I became friends with David Storm, not Stone. David Stone too, but not. And he is an expert at lock picking.
Oh,
like that's like he's the one guy that like a really big expert. Yeah. Like he like had talked to a company that made a lock and it was false, and he let them know. But you have all these. Like I met a guy once that is an expert at paper, knows how to put paper together in specific ways. And like magic conventions, you have all these weirdly interesting experts, and that's the fun part to me. Is to like to meet people again. Yeah.
No, there's definitely. I mean, it is cool how within magic there is so much diversity. Like I'm sure it happens a little bit at a juggling convention, but in general, it's just what are the objects and how many of them that you're trying not to drop. Maybe some balance type stuff, but yeah, I do the whole Eugene Berger. The House of Magic has many rooms. Is totally true because on the one hand, we're all connected and we're all in this, sort of club and something that we are all passionate about. But at the same time, there is like such a wide variety of magicians and things that people are considering magic that will be at a convention like that.
Yeah, sure.
I always thought of magicians as either being like a Boy Scout or like a spy. So like Boy Scout specialties or a spy does like a spy. You're learning all these weirdly interesting skills. Like we're playing with coding right now.
Okay.
Like how to, I don't know how much I want to go into that, but like how to talk without people knowing that we're talking.
Right.
And so like you pick up these skill sets, like how would a spy do it? Or like how a Boy Scout gets these specific things. And like you collect these badges of things that you.
Yeah. And you never know how you're going to use them or what purpose they could have on stage or off stage. Yeah. That's what we spend a lot of time doing. It's just like learning something or seeing someone do something that we're like, even if it's not in a magic show, we're like, how could we utilize that in
like
a magic show?
Set. Even like sewing or like making graphic design stuff, like it's all skill based. So magic is the collection of like all these specific skills.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of what appeals to me about magic is because it allows me to scratch that itch of, a little bit of writing, a little bit of directing, a little bit of prop building, a little bit of costuming, and sort of problem solving, and much like live theater where you end up wearing many hats. But in this case, you're the one. I mean, again, you have collaborators, you chat with folks about it, but it sort of lets you do a variety of skills within one umbrella,
Sure.
I did. We need to talk about Fool Us because that was such a strange experience. Not just being on that platform, but at the time when we all went to do that. So just to give our listener a little bit of backstory, season 7B, which was sort of season 8, but that means they're on season 10 now. It doesn't matter. 7B, for whatever reason they called it 7B, was another season that they filmed after 7, presumably A. And it was the first season that was filmed during lockdown. pandemic. I say lockdown just because we get into, is the pandemic still going on? But
it was definitely during lockdown.
Right. And so we filmed this in October of 2020. And you guys had the same experience as me, which was getting to go to the Rio, which was completely shut down except for the production bubble. And, all of like testing in advance, and then you can't leave the hotel, and, all sorts of just like, and from what I found out later, it was apparently one of the first TV shows that went back into production. Like it was sort of a trial thing.
We were guinea pigs. Okay.
Right. I mean, yeah, exactly. So it was, I guess, one of the first things that sort of carefully tiptoed in, starting back up. So, were you guys like me, where you're sitting around in mid 2020 and you're like, well, I'm not doing a lot anyway, so I might as well audition for Fool Us? Like, what was that process for you?
Oh, it was insane. We had auditioned 3 years in a row.
Okay.
And first year we almost made it on. We had this bit, and the idea was we were telling two different stories, and I would end up walking to the background, and Stacy would tell the story, and I'd have these cue cards where I would correct her.
Correct me behind my back, yeah.
Cool.
So 3 years before, they said, we really like this. We were really in the running to be on, but something.
We were on the wait list. Like if someone couldn't come, we were going to go.
Gotcha.
So time went by. We made up another routine, sent it in. Made up another routine, sent it in. And then they called us right at the beginning of lockdown, and they said, that trick you did, we like that trick.
Very first one you sent us.
Cool.
Do you mind if we want you to do it? We want you to do this trick. And I said, that's great, but we have a lot of changes. It's been 4 years. Like, we want to make some changes. Can we refilm it? They said, yeah, it's fantastic to do that, but there's going to be no audience.
Right.
Like, there's going to be no audience at all. We work on audience interaction.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot.
I think a lot of people do.
And other thing we do is when we come up with a trick, the way that we test a trick. So we're working on something new now. We'll book 4 or 5 open mic nights around here.
Yeah.
And we're to show up at like a coffee shop, and we'll do this trick. And we try to find the worst scenario to do the trick.
Hardest environment.
Totally.
Kids, we'll do stuff in front of kids and all that, because you learn these things. What's best, what's not. We would never try to go on TV and do a bit of practice. Couldn't do any of that because we were in complete and utter lockdown. So they told us we'd be on, and we had, it was like 3 months or 2 months, about 3 months in between. Yeah. So we filmed in October, and they had told us back in June that we were going to be
July,
on. Yeah. Okay. So we have this, we're in a house where we can't interact with anybody, and all we can think about is the fact that we're going to be in front of Penn and Teller.
Yeah. It's terrifying.
Sure.
And I had to do sleight of hand in our trick, and I was like, why are you doing this to me?
Right.
We have this situation in our trick where it involves somebody making a choice, and depending on what they say, something happens to make the rest of it happen.
Okay.
But we couldn't practice the timing. Magic is always about timing. You have someone pick a card, and you're making them pick a card. It's all about timing. So we have this scenario where like it has to be smooth. So we had to build like an Arduino robot that would randomly select the time card, like all this crazy.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah, Jason came up with that. So I would like push a little button with my foot while we were going through the lines, and then this little thing would say stuff so that I could
It said stop, and like
practice my reaction of when they would say something.
Right. Oh, that's great. Okay, cool.
So we had this idea for this trick, and like I've done sleight of hand my entire life, and Stacy does mentalism. And I said right away, I'm like, if we're going to do this, you need to make a card vanish.
Yeah.
And
no big deal.
We had a little resistance. We had some arguments back and forth.
That's fair. That's reasonable.
But we were locked in a house by ourselves.
Yeah,
right? So we went out to Vegas, and it was terrifying because when you come into the airport at Vegas now, there's pictures and videos for every single show. Do you remember this? When you went out there was none.
There was nothing, like no billboards, advertising anything. Yeah. My favorite memory from that, obviously being on Penn and Teller, was amazing, but I have one picture from that experience that I love. Our room overlooked the pool at the Rio, which was completely roped off, if you remember. We couldn't use it. We couldn't go anywhere near it. I have a picture of Jason standing next to the pool with his toe under the rope, like he's gonna like touch the.
Nice. Yeah.
That's just how you felt the whole time. There was like, we don't want to do anything wrong. We don't get kicked out of production.
Before you went any further,
Sure.
the production was absolutely.
Oh, they were great.
Like they handled everything.
Everything was very safe. And
Scenario wise, it was interesting. So it was really nerve wracking because we walk in and like Penn and Teller are how far away were they? 20 yards away.
Yeah.
And I had this weird moment where I'm like, are they really sitting there? Or are they like holograms? I can't tell if it's like, because it's like an out of body experience of like, we did our bit. I don't remember any of it.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I blacked out.
Yeah, I don't remember. I had to say the first word too. So when we walked out, I just try to remember him like kind of like nudging me back there, like move. And I like stepped forward and things just came out of my mouth and I don't really remember. I don't know if you felt that way, but I was really nervous.
100%. That I definitely, I had the thought, like, I think the first line I said was right. Like once I got going, it was fine. But that the first, like, okay, go, like, I don't have any words. So yeah, I'm 100%.
It was great. I mean, looking back on it, there's a multitude of things we would have done different. I mean, first would be to try in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, it was you learn a lot. We've never done like a national TV spot. We've done morning news. And all
that was our first national spot. Though.
TV is a different monster. And they do like an amazing job. But like,
and you did it again, right?
Mostly because I wanted to see like how is the experience different. Unfortunately, the second time I was on, it was still a virtual audience. So while the restrictions were much, were lifted and the casino was open and all that stuff, it still wasn't quite. I mean, it is. I cannot describe to anyone who hasn't done it how nerve-wracking it is to walk out into a 1,400 seat theater and there are 3 celebrities watching you, and 2 of them are kind of laughing and reacting, but basically they're burning you and trying to figure out what you're doing. And it's just, it's completely insane.
I told him the whole time, I was like, so originally, like I said, I thought if we had done this with an audience, I would have never looked at Penn and Teller personally. I probably would have never made eye contact with them just for my own sanity. I would have been like, just look over here. Cause I do this all the time. I talk to audiences. This is nothing different. But because we didn't have that option, I told him like in my head the whole time before I got out there, I'm like, I'm literally going to go out and do a card sleight for the best sleight of hand artist that's like currently living and be like, what'd you think? What'd you think? That was just terrifying to me. I'm like, why am I doing this?
Because I refused to. That's why you're doing it.
I mean, it fit. It served the piece that you did, all that. Yeah.
I know. It was, I mean, I'm glad I did it now, but like in that moment, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
So much pressure. Like it was so much pressure.
Yeah, no, it was great. And did you get a chance to chat with them at all afterwards, or was it production? Okay,
that was the production team was amazing at following all of this protocol and keeping everyone safe. But that was the sad part is that we didn't get to engage with Penn and Teller.
Because shows before they usually would come back. I've heard and talk to you and stuff.
Did you get to do that the second time around?
No, actually, the opposite. I got to do it the first, but not the second. I guess again because of just sort of where you are. I know that the way I filmed on the second shoot, they were doing a Penn and Teller only bit right afterwards. So I'm sure they were like, "All right, we got that guy done. Now let's reset and get our thing ready." First time I did, I went backstage and said, okay, if you want to go out and, talk with them a little bit, you can. And I was like, and so I went back out, but like, I still had to stay on the stage. Right. And I remember like taking a couple of steps forward and Penn very kindly just went, like you could tell he was like, please don't come down here because that's breaking the rules, but I don't want to be rude, and then, cause I mean, I of course am just in my mind and chatting, with them and I'm like, oh yeah, sorry. And
it's weird to shout across a room.
Right. But yeah, what my biggest regret, there's no way that I could have done this differently, but Teller had some really nice things to say to me after the cameras stopped rolling. And I wish I had that little like recorder in my pocket, because the really nice things that Penn said about me and about you guys made it to air, But the fact that Teller had some nice things to say about what I had shown would definitely be a fun thing to listen to on if I'm having a rough day. It'd be nice to sort of pop that tape out,
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it was awesome, and to have that experience, and especially like certainly made it less lonely. The fact that we all bumped into each other while we were there, it was
just so funny and weird. Yeah,
I think didn't one of us post like a picture of the doorknob or something, or a picture outside, and you're like, "Hey, are you here? Because I'm a floor above you." Or something.
Right. Yeah. I can't remember. Yeah, because it was something very, very obscure like that, where I knew it because I was in the same space, but yeah. Because obviously we're not, you don't talk about it, not only because it's a secret, but literally like I know some people don't make the cut. So we didn't know until it showed up in the TV guide whether we had made the cut or not. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we've learned from experience that if we're going to do something that's pretty cool or really interesting, we try not to share it with anyone until we know it's actually happening. Because we've had scenarios where like, we thought we were doing this really cool gig.
Oh yeah.
We tell a couple people, and then of course things happen and it doesn't go through. And then you're like, yeah, so we didn't do that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, if you want to see them on America's Got Talent, oh shoot, I'm not supposed to talk about that. Never mind. A spoiler alert. No. If you want to find out more about my friends Jason and Stacy, the website is theallenslive.com. And then if you are on the social media, especially Instagram, theallensmagic.com. Again, Allens is ALANS. So that's the best way to find all about their public shows and all sorts of ventures they're having. And that is going to do it for this episode of the Podcast of the Impossible. But to support the Museum of the Impossible project, as well as other public shows and social media and more, you can head on over to oftheimpossible.com. I'm Peter Wood. Thanks.